Thanks, Mr. Breeze. You know, as Mr. Breeze mentioned, I was on the Alabama mission trip about a month or so ago, and when we got back, she was like, Work-A-Thon is May 6th, you're speaking, make sure you say service is a way of life at least once, and it'll be great. And now that I've already said it, and Mr. Breeze stole some of my talking points, I feel like I should be done, right? No? Okay. Well, each time that I sat down to kind of think about what I wanted to share this morning, I couldn't help but wonder, why me? Why am I the one up here? What do I have to offer? What things have I done? And when I think back on my time at Lansing Catholic, I can remember 2 Work-A-Thon speakers. And one of them, I think he was a missionary priest, and I don't remember where he was, but he was speaking to us via Zoom. And he was telling us how in his missionary work, he really had to say mass and evangelize under the radar, because where he was, he could have been arrested or worse. And I also remember this woman coming to speak to us that had started a nonprofit in the Detroit area. She works with homeless individuals, and in college, she designed this coat that's also a sleeping bag. Like, you do some zipping and unzipping, and it's a coat, and then you do some zipping and unzipping, and it's a sleeping bag. Kind of blew my mind. And she also employs homeless individuals to make the coats. It was just, I was blown away by these 2 speakers. And I think the reason they really stood out to me is because I felt like, from my perspective, they were out in the world doing these big things in the name of service. And it's hard for me to stand up here and refrain from comparison. And I just kept falling into this trap of comparison. So I turned to prayer. And in prayer, Jesus led me back to something that I talk with my students about. In my current job, I work as a grief counselor, and I travel all around Lenawee County, meet with students K through 12, and provide grief support and grief education to parents, teachers, school administrators. And in grief work, we end up talking a lot about comparison, because I hear my students say things like, I don't really think that they should be sad because he was my dad. Or on the opposite end of that, I hear students say, I feel bad asking for help because he was just my friend, but he was somebody's brother. So I feel like his family should get support. I don't know if I should be the one asking for support. And we fall into comparison. And when I talk to my students about this, I explain how there's no such thing as a grief pizza. Grief isn't something where there's only so much or so many pieces to go around. I also get asked a question a lot that I think is rooted in comparison, and that question is, what loss is the worst loss? Is it the loss of a sibling, a friend, a spouse, a parent, the loss of a child? And the only proper response to that question is each person's loss gets to be the worst loss in the world because it is to them. And when we start comparing losses, we've moved from our heart to our head. And when we're grieving, when we've lost someone, our head isn't broken, our heart is broken. And so when I'm comparing my story and my life to the stories and lives of people that I've heard speak or people that I've read about, I'm not thinking with my heart, I'm thinking with my head. I'm not thinking with a servant's heart. But like grief, service as a way of life gets complicated when we fall into comparison. Through high school and through college, I spent so much time trying to figure out with my head what I was called to do with my life. What was this big thing that I was going to do, go out and change the world? And I sat here during Work-A-Thons listening to people that were out there doing the thing. And I was mad because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be out there doing the thing, living service as a way of life. And through all that time, I just kept hearing Jesus say to me, use all that you have to serve others. And my response was always like, yeah, I got that part. But like, bro, for real, can I get some more information? And I just said bro, and I blame it on the fact that I spent my spring break with high school boys. So I'm thankful this morning is only a few hours. Hopefully I don't pick up as much lingo. I couldn't even stop to appreciate those words, use everything you have to serve others, because I couldn't stop asking questions. How? In what way? I desperately wanted a roadmap. I wanted to know the name of the college I was supposed to go to, what I was supposed to pick as my major. And even once I landed in social work, I still had more questions, like who do you want me to serve? Can I get a population? Like I was on Wheel of Fortune asking if I could get a vowel. And I felt the need to know what I was gonna do, and I still just kept hearing, use all that you have to serve others. And we hear that we're called to be doers of the word and not hearers only, but I fall into the trap of only focusing on doing and not really listening. I still get lost along this journey. I still ask Jesus if I can buy a vowel. I still fall into comparison. I worry if what I'm doing matters. I wonder if I'm doing enough. I wonder if I'm changing the world. And I'm far from perfect, so I also wonder sometimes who, if anyone, is noticing. Between getting my bachelor's degree and my master's degree, I took a year of service and worked with Habitat for Humanity through AmeriCorps. And the AmeriCorps motto is get things done. But ironically enough, through that year, I realized that the things that I do don't even compare in importance to who I am. The things that we do, even in the name of service, don't compare in importance to who we are. Matthew Kelly writes, "The world compares me to my neighbor. God compares me to my former self." So every service project, every mission trip that I'm part of, helps me learn about how to better live with a servant's heart. I know that each time I set out to build a better world, Jesus ends up building a better me. And I know it's possible that some of you didn't really want to be here this morning. Maybe you're not like Ms. DeVries and Work-A-Thon is not your favorite day of the year. But yet here we are, and we're going out this morning to serve. And you know, maybe me meeting with a student for 20 minutes a week to talk about the death of their loved one changes the world, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe a few hours of service in Lansing, Michigan on a Friday morning changes the world. Maybe it doesn't. But those things can certainly change us. Service isn't a chore, not something we check off of our to-do list. It's an act of love if we choose it to be. If we lead with our hearts instead of with our heads. And that's my challenge for you all this morning. Put aside any thoughts about what you're doing this morning might not be exactly what you want to spend your morning doing. Or thoughts about how maybe this morning doesn't really matter in the big picture view of your life. And lead with your heart, a servant's heart. Not just this morning, but in everything that you do. That is what service as a way of life means to me. Thank you.